Welcome back to the hottest marriage show in the neighborhood. It's John D and
Kanika,
aka
Dude.
And Too Much Podcast. Rescripting the culture, one conversation at a time. What you like? Somebody got 1 pen left?
Right. One. Oh.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. Waiting for this snow to come.
I'm not.
More snow.
Oh. It'll be beautiful.
Yeah, that's why I want to be able to get some stuff out the way and then just be able to relax. So I really thought that she went to go get some adult beverages. I was like, she went out in public. I was like, that's crazy. She went out there and didn't.
That mug said I went out. I went to run to get some medicine for a kid. A kid is sick. But I didn't. Oh, yeah, the snow is coming. So adult beverages should be in the house somewhere, but they're not right now.
Yeah, I guess we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But what's on your mind?
So I'm sure people have seen this online, but I had some feelings about this post somebody had. A friend of mine posted, I don't know if it's a real scenario, like somebody really experienced this or if somebody just put it online, but I'm going to put it out there. So a guy marries a woman 4 years ago. They have a child together. She has 2 children from a previous relationship. They've been married 4 years. So she's talking to him and she says, I think you should adopt them. Now he's thinking about it. He hasn't given her an answer, but he's leaning towards no. Because his thought is, if anything were to happen, he would only want to be responsible for his kid. And if he adopts the other 2, then he'll be responsible for all 3. He just wants to have to, thinking ahead if that's possible. And so then he's like, basically, is he wrong for that? And so the friend of mine that posted it was a woman. So, she's going to have majority women responding to what she's talking about. And so there were a few things that came out of this that got me. But we're going to start off with this. So they've been married 4 years. They have a child together. She had 2 before. Now she's asking him to adopt the child. What are your thoughts? Because I got thoughts.
I think that's something that should have been discussed prior to marriage.
Absolutely.
I wonder how much of a surprise is this to him. I can understand how he's looking, especially we don't know the state of the marriage. We don't know how happy. Sometimes when you're happy, after 4 years, that should be enough. But if you're not there where you feel like I could get past that, that's a huge commitment.
Now, see, my thought was, if they're 4 years in and she's just now saying, maybe you should adopt my other 2, I'm thinking they must be in a really good place. She must feel like they're solid. So
maybe so. But he has to feel that way.
Exactly. But this was my first argument. So somebody was like, well, he already planning to be divorced.
Why did you say that?
Because he says, if we split, I only want to have to be responsible for my child, financially responsible. Now, this is his thing. He said, financially responsible for my child and co-parent. And so my thought was this. We all know that 50% of marriages end in divorce. We know of our own friends who've been married and been divorced. There could be a multitude of things that lead to the divorce. Nobody foresees that when they get married. Nobody goes in married and says, but if we get divorced. But it's a real thing that you should think about. What would happen if? Because we never know. And so I was saying, she must have felt like we're good. So I'm about to say this to him.
You would only have to be good to be able to say that.
Yes. That's what I'm figuring. But when he's thinking, he's like, look, if it gets bad and we got to split financially, I'm only trying to take care of my child. So the first thing that comes up was, so I think I was one of the first people to comment, and I was like, I understand. I feel like they should have talked about it beforehand. I don't think it's necessary for anybody to adopt a child in a marriage. I know of people who said, I want to adopt a child, that this was a discussion before the marriage and it happened. I know people who've gotten married, they've had children from other relationships. the step parent loves the child. I'm a child from a relationship where there was a divorce and my stepfather came in, and I adore my stepfather and he adores me. But there was no conversation about adoption. I don't even know many people, us growing up, so many people in growing up with step parents. And they weren't like, oh, I got adopted by my step parent. I don't know where this conversation came from, where this became something. But one of the first things that some of the women were saying was, oh, he's broke. So one, he's already playing and he's not even fully committed to her. Two, he's broke. And then what was the other thing they said? One, he's not committed. Two, he's broke. I forget what the third argument was, but there were a couple of things I felt about that. So number one, when they said he's not committed, do you agree?
I remember feeling that way when I first said that. Heard that. But I said that with my experience.
Oh, bad.
I didn't say that with the idea that whoever's making decisions for themselves should think about pros and cons. That's the least you can do. If you're not thinking about the cons of it, you're not being realistic about what could possibly happen.
True.
After I thought about that, to me, that's the only way you can make a sound decision. You got to think about the worst and the best. Mm-hmm. What about the inside, the middle decisions that you end up making? But yeah, I think that he was just being proactive for the worst case scenario.
I do too, and I know that the majority of the women who responded kind of responded along the same, like they were singing the same songs. And I'm thinking about it not just as a woman, but if I'm thinking about my son in a relationship or my brothers. And I think that is what levels people out. Because a lot of times, my best friend always says, people will hold other people to higher expectations than themselves. Because there are people who would comment, but they didn't adopt their stepchildren. You know what I'm saying? They weren't adopted, but it's like, no, he should definitely adopt them. That means that he's not committed. That means it doesn't mean that. Because he never said anything about not having a relationship after the divorce. Mm-hmm. He never said that. I do believe that there are people who have relationships with their step parents, and then when the relationship doesn't work out between their parents, it doesn't mean that the step parent doesn't love that kid.
Correct.
And if they're co-parenting with another kid and they're seeing these other kids they've helped raise, it doesn't mean that they're gonna be like, well, I'm only taking you. That doesn't mean that. I guess I'm just thinking from the standpoint of, I grew up and nobody ever talked about adoption. I just don't understand where this thing came from, where all of a sudden they were like, of course he should. I don't necessarily agree with that. And then the thing of them saying, he's broke. I think that's another thing about it. No. So the thing is, to say we get married and I have student loans and you're like, I'm gonna help you pay off your student loans. Might bet. We get a divorce. Are you still gonna help me with the student loans?
So the way that I was told, depending on how the marriage is set up, the man is supposed to pay alimony for a woman to be able. So I
think that depends.
I know it does, but I'm saying if you were paying for this, and depending on how y'all fell apart, it depends on how you feel about it. Like, are you going to hold me accountable today? Because some women are like, yep, I need that.
Well, I don't know I don't know the specifics of alimony. However, the thing about it is when I signed those promissory notes, saying, okay, I'm going to do this and I am willing to take on the responsibility of it because this is a choice I'm making now. And I liken that to having children. When you have children with someone else prior to, you're saying, when you get pregnant, you're saying, I'm committing to having this child with this person. Mm-hmm. But I always tell my younger cousins and stuff, I'm like, you need to make a decision like it's going to be only you ever. And we could say that the other person will always be there, but we do not know. So you always have to make the decision by saying, if this person doesn't help me with a dime, am I able to handle everything that comes with this? And so if you're coming into a marriage with 2 children that you made that decision for, and your spouse is like, we're going to raise our children together, our children, whether through marriage or by blood, and then you split, you took that, was like, they helped you with raising the children at that time financially. But after it's over, I don't think that you should have to. And I don't think people should be demeaned by, like, called broke just because they don't want to financially take care of someone else's child. I mean, you could be my child by heart, but do you have to be my child in the pocket? I don't.
So we're thinking as if the man wanted a mutual separation. What if the man was cheating? Like, no woman is gonna let him off. Like, he's like, we're doing this together, and then you gonna go off and cheat. I need my money. I need this to continue to live this lifestyle to raise these kids. You messed this up. A lot of times we think that when it's a separation like that, that it was a mutual understanding, we picked the wrong people. It's not typically like that. It's always...
Well, to be fair, nothing has happened yet. And I know when you add in new scenarios, it makes the difference.
But I'm saying it does. And that's why it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't want people to think like there's just one right answer, because like, depending on how you grew up, you may not even have the answers that's the best for you and whoever. You know, so what do you think, though?
Well, I think that having grown up in a home where there was a stepfather, I don't think that it was necessary for adoption. That wasn't even something that people talked about for when we were.
So is it a thing now?
I don't know, but this is the thing. I don't know if it is, because the people that I've experienced going in and getting married or being married the second time, nobody be talking about getting adopted.
Did they get their last names changed, huh?
No. But then this is the other thing, is that it's like, none of this has anything to do with whether or not, and I want to just say that the scenario was strictly about the financial responsibility. He never mentioned anything about not wanting to have a relationship with the kids. It didn't have anything to do with that. It didn't even have to do with him saying we're on the rocks. It's like, if something happened, I'm just thinking of when I part ways, I want to just be financially responsible for this one kid. But what it did was it brought up some things about when women say that, not all women, but just in this thread, I just saw a lot of women agreeing with one another that he was broke, he wasn't fully committed, or else he wouldn't have been talking about what if we split.
I think that's an age thing.
Maybe, I don't know. But I thought that it was interesting to, and I even said to them, I said, hey, can we think from the other perspective? Maybe she had and I don't villainize anybody, but maybe she had the intention that I'm gonna see how it works, and then if you talk to him about adoption beforehand, would that have changed the decision about marriage? Do you wait until you're comfortable in the marriage and then you bring up the subject? Maybe something changed with the children and their father's relationship, where the father just straight disappeared or even passed away. Anything could have happened where she was like, let me see about this whole, like, would he be willing to adopt thing? I just think that it surprised me how many people immediately went to attack him for his concern. It's just a simple thought. He wasn't saying anything about the marriage itself, but it was like an immediate thing. And one thing that I always think about is how I grew up. And I always think when it's a man versus woman type of conversation, I always think in terms of what would I want for my brothers or for my kid, my son, because that changes. As a woman, of course, you're going to be like, he need to do this and he probably da-da-da-da-da. But when you think of it from the perspective of people you love and you want to protect, men you want to love and protect, you always think about what's best or what makes the most sense for them. I wouldn't advise my brother to adopt a child. I mean, I wouldn't advise them at all. And it's not to say that my brother wouldn't love them, but you never know what happens in marriages. And when it all comes down to it, when you part ways, you still have to, like, take care of yourself in a separate home. Mm-hmm. So there's that responsibility. And then it comes to the question of, okay, so we divorced. I done adopted your kids, we divorced. So if you get remarried, he adopting them? Is he gonna take over? He taking the mantle? Is he gonna take the torch and run? Like, so what is it then?
I think it definitely complicates things.
Yeah.
When you start incorporating, it's almost like when I hear of adoption, I hear last names change.
Yeah.
So it kind of like removes is whose kids are these.
Yes.
Like I know that there could be a mark on some women, which like they got 2 or 3 kids and got different last names. Like you people don't know if they're their siblings unless they know the history. So and then that comes with judgment.
Yes.
Depending on who you are and where you're moving, you could have made some mistakes earlier in life, and now this person is going to kind of put this Band-Aid over poor decisions made prior.
Well,
but it still should be spoken about.
I get it. And not even to say poor decisions. They could have been married a couple of times and had kids with different fathers.
It was still poor decisions too.
Well,
they didn't work.
Okay.
I don't want to get in.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And so giving everybody the last name is supposed to, I understand that part. I think that the bigger question for me is, for him to question whether or not that's something for him, should it lead to people attacking him about it?
Oh, you get attacked for just being a good person. So
you do.
It's okay. Like, but if people can find negativity in anything, that's a good question. Like if somebody can see it that way, that don't mean it can't happen. You know what I'm saying? So it's a good way to just kind of see where you are. Where do you fall on the pendulum? Like is it far-fetched? Are you closer to that? Or, you like see it in a different way, and then why? Why do you feel like the way you're looking at it is more sound than that person?
True. I think that what kept circling back to me was when my friend, she was like, we always have higher expectations for hypotheticals or for other people outside of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we can't really see what would you do in the moment for real versus how you're holding someone else, what you think that they should be doing. And there are a lot of things that could be happening in the background that would lead a change to someone's perspective. I guess when I was looking at it, I was just thinking, I'm in it for 4 years. We're loving these kids. And you bring up this part, and I'm just saying, what if? And making sure that I'm able to adequately take care of myself and my child if the worst happens. What does that look like? Yeah. I was just surprised at not the comments, but just how heavy the group was on one side versus being more balanced and being able to see both perspectives.
Because I think at the end of the day, every woman wants a man to be able to do that.
Yeah. So I wonder if, so if we got a divorce and I married another man and he had a child, the mother was gone, it would not even cross my mind to adopt that child.
Because of the man. No, it's because of the man. The man's not going to ask you to adopt my child. Like, it's more of a woman for security purposes, in my mind.
Okay.
I don't see anything else. Why would you want to do it? It just kind of reduces a lot of conversations later. Not saying it won't come out, but having it with people that could be mean.
And so then this is the other thing. So what do you think about the parent being the one to ask? Like, it's different if the one coming into the family is saying, I want to adopt these children.
Mm-hmm. But what if they don't ever ask? Then you got to just wait. So she wanted to introduce the idea because he's not going to just say, hey, unless somebody say, man, you ever thought about adopting a kid? Like, you don't just be like, I'm going to adopt this kid.
Well, I feel like that's taken place before.
It's happening, but I'm saying like it was all new to us.
Yeah.
So when you heard it, it was like, what?
You're right. And then I don't know.
It wasn't regular. It's still not regular.
Yeah, it's not. It's not regular.
And we've seen it happen.
Yeah, but I do think that it's. I think it's a great. It was just something to really think about, especially in the world now where we're having broken relationships and then finding new relationships, and then these children, going into these new relationships with their parent. Like, what does that look like? I just thought it was, I was thinking to myself, I'd never even, like, adoption had never really been a big thing that anybody ever talked about. So it was so crazy that there was such strong feelings about, yeah, he should be doing that. I'm like, what? When do you be seeing people do that? I don't see it very often. So it was just interesting to me.
Well, when I knew women that were having babies by multiple kids. Multiple men. Like, I always thought they probably should keep their own last name unless they're going to be with the person. Giving it to the father.
Their children all keep the
mother's last name. So then it's less headache of whose kids are these. You know that these are such and such kids. They all got the same last name. But if they got different last names, it I just remember seeing it when I first started teaching. And I was like, I can't imagine how a woman would feel young. You got 2 or 3 kids and it's different last names.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I've known of people who they to say, like, when you have the child, the fathers could be very active and be like, you know, and you want to give that.
Well, yeah, together.
Yeah, but then when they're not together, yes, I understand.
Yeah, like so check this out. If you want the child's last name, we have to get married where all of us are going to change our last names. I'm not about to just give you my kid's last name. And the reason why I say this is because of my sister, you know, and I just thought about the idea of her having different last names to keep up with, and then what the kids would have to
keep up with.
For real, because the kids are going to have to do that too. You all live together, and then, like, so I remember that happening where she just was like, all of them was going to put their last name. And I was like, that was probably one of the smartest things you could do just to save that, you know, that conversation with some people.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, I felt different too. When my mom divorced my dad and she remarried, I didn't know how I was going to feel about us all having different last names. Like, my brothers, we all had the same last name, obviously. And then my mom, she had a different name. And I had seen it growing up where people would, like, I was thinking about stuff like when they come up to my mom and be like, Ms. Williams. And be like, that's not her name. And, you know, people assuming, well, what is that going to look like? For a kid like me, when I was growing up, I thought that I was like, I'm going to feel so awkward. But I didn't, because it was going on with everybody around me. So then you realize that it's really fairly normal.
Well, you don't want that to ever be normal, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it, you know, I guess that in my head, it wouldn't be as much of a deterrent because I grew up and that was a case for a good number of family and friends. Like, they had siblings that had different last names, and they had and you just learn who was who.
Well, I guess it's different when you have the insecurity about it.
Yeah. So if there is an insecurity, I understand that. Yeah. So if you're worried about that, I get that part. But anyway, I just thought that it was interesting. I wanted to know from a man's perspective what your thoughts were, because I don't want to be the person that women be like, oh, she. But truthfully, I really do look at everything that has to do with men and women. I look at it from both perspectives as best as I can, because I don't want to be lopsided. And then I turn around and have a whole different perspective when it come down to somebody in my family. I'm trying to look at it from both perspectives. So, but I was curious of what you thought about that.
Never.
Would you adopt? I died. And then you miraculously, you fell in love, had no idea what's going to happen. It just kind of fell in your lap. If she had a child, you would adopt.
Yeah, I mean, with the information I know now, like, if I were there, I wouldn't just get caught slipping with just anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So apparently I know what this looks like, yeah. Because I think that I would make a sound decision.
Would you say it going in like, I want to do this, or would you wait for her to bring it up if that's what she wanted to do?
Oh, I think that should be a conversation you should have anyway, just so that you could be on the same, like, we brought this up a few minutes ago. You were, now what happened? What changed? So if you don't have that conversation, you just wait. And what if it don't come up? So to me, I feel like that's the gift of the man.
If they said don't do it.
You have to put that into consideration. and see why. Because this isn't necessary.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So this isn't, I'm going to still be a great stepdad or whatnot. So if this is affecting my kid's idea, no. Yeah, no. And I think whoever I'm messing with is going to know and understand. Hey, I respect that. I'm pretty sure she know I'm a good person. I'm going to still do whatever I need to do. But if I know that it's really important to her, it's my job to convince my kids how important it is. So they be like, I ain't look at it that way. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do believe that. I believe that if there's two sides of a fence and you got special people and one person is not feeling it, it's your job to articulate it so that they can support you because they care for you. And you don't want them to be like, I can't believe they went against. You got to show them why this is the best decision. So they could be like, oh, okay, I didn't look at it. So that the next time it comes up, they're like, I ain't messing with you. You know, and that's the way I do. It's important enough.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, you know, situations can change people's perspectives, but it's interesting to just know where you would go with that.
Yeah. Anybody want to give a shout out before we get out of here?
Oh, no. I'm good for today.
I want to give a shout out to all of the city workers that got to work outside, make it safe, people to be able to travel. Thank you so much. And I hope you have the safest day and the best weekend ever. Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. GATA. Get after that action or that action will get after you. Be great on purpose.